If you knew that there was one behavior that could predict a divorce with about 100% accuracy, would you want to know what it is? Well, that's what I'm going to be talking about today because John Gottman, a lead researcher in the marriage research field, has stated that if he sees this behavior in consistently within 3 minutes of watching a couple, he could predict with 90% accuracy that that marriage would end within 6 years. Pretty amazing, right? And so if you don't have time to listen to this right now, or if you just want to find out how quickly to do that, then please just get in touch with me, put a message down below in the contents, or just direct message me and set up a discovery session to find out how you can protect your marriage. But what this behavior is it's what John Gottman calls a harsh opening. And so let me give you an example of what that looks like. Several years ago, I was working with some clients, and she says, I don't understand why he cannot do one simple request. And I said, okay, what's the request? She says, all I want him to do is clean the kitchen up before we go to bed. And I went, okay, seems like a reasonable thing. I said, what's the problem? So he jumps in and he says, well, when I come down in the morning and she's down in the kitchen and she is just banging pots and pans around and slamming cupboards, and she just looks at me and she just says, you never do what I ask. Why can you just not do this one simple thing? He just went, I just shut down. I turn off. Can any of you relate to that? And the reason why, now, what she was asking for was perfectly reasonable, right? So I looked at him and I said to him, I said, okay, what if she approached you like this? So I said, honey, it really gets my day off on a bad footing when I come downstairs and see dishes in the sink and, food stuff, or the stove not wiped down. It just really, really starts my day off on a wrong note, and I'm really wondering if it would be possible to just have the kitchen cleaned up at night. And I stopped, and he looked at me and he went, wow, that would be completely different. And I looked at her and I said, how does that sound to you? And what the behavior is that John Gottman was watching for is what he called a harsh opening. What gets interpreted by the person who's hearing it as an attack. Why did you? You always, you never, right? It's basically an invitation to an argument. Okay. And nobody likes to be approached that way. And believe me, I understand. I get it, right? But the question becomes, what's the outcome that you want? Because in John Gottman's research, what would happen when he would see one partner start with a harsh opening and the other partner getting defensive and then counter attacking, and then the first person getting defensive and going back and forth, what it did was create this cycle of conflict. Nobody's really listening to each other. Nobody's actually asking very specifically for what they want or explaining how they feel. Now, I hear you. I get it. I understand. You're saying, why should I have to do this? Well, to be perfectly honest, you don't. But if this is the way you and your partner talk to each other all the time, if this is the way that conversations begin, then it's not going to go well. And literally, his research shows that if he saw this, he would basically say, if this was a consistent behavior going on in the marriage, then that marriage would end within 6 years. So you don't have to do anything different. But the question is, what is the outcome that you want? If you want a happy marriage, if you want one that you both want to be in, then I'm telling you, this works. Okay. What you want to do is what I did with my couples is I showed them how to say exactly the same thing, but in what was called a soft opening, right? It's not leaping into an attack. It's actually figuring out what you want, what pain point you're trying to avoid. In my client's case, it was her day starting off not well because she came down to what she determined was a dirty kitchen. And so when we can make a request, when she can say, hey, here's what happens when I come down in the kitchen and it's a mess. This is how I feel, and I'm wondering if we could come to an agreement on how that not to happen, right? And it's sort of like, when you approach somebody like that, it's like, how can you not say no to that? But it's very, very different from being told you're wrong, you're bad, you always do this, you never do that. That's an invitation to a fight. And the consistent cycle of conflict is what puts marriages at risk. Okay. So people talk about, marriage and relationship professionals talk about good communication as an essential element for a healthy relationship. And I am 100% behind that. If we cannot calmly and invitingly have a conversation with our partners, what we end up having is a fight. And the more we fight, the more likely we are to do damage to our relationship. Now, there's some other things, there's some other aspects of conflict and communication that I'm going to be talking about over the next few weeks. But this one is, how do you start it, right? Am I inviting you to have a conversation with me, or am I inviting you to have a fight? Because basically, that choice is yours. And it's much easier and it's much healthier for our relationship to come at it in an inviting way. So instead of the harsh opening, why did you always, you never, do it in a much softer way. Now, there's a key to this, which means you got to grab your emotions before you open your mouth, right? Because if you're hot and you start talking to your partner, more than likely you're going to have a harsh opening. So it's a two-step process. It's one, grab your emotions, take a deep breath, and think about how you want to say what you're going to say. Okay. And there's a lot more to this. This is just one step, but it's a crucial step to protect your relationship. So if you want to know more about how to do this or any other issues you might be having in your relationship, I invite you to put a comment down below, send me a direct message, or you can email me at Lesli, Lesli, at foundationscoachingnc.com, and I will be happy to share more with you. So hopefully you found this helpful, and until next week, stay loving.